So, just some ideas that I've got so far. Um, I want to cover certain teams like St. Pauli in the Bundesliga, Livorno in Italy, that highlight their leftist views and put that into football as a team, which is so beautiful. Um, and then looking at some other things like Truck, TRUK, and it's a non-league team in the UK that is made up of transgender athletes, and there's some short documentaries on them, and not a lot of information. You know, they are a very, 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 very tiny amateur club, um, but what they're doing is just beautiful. Um, Spotlight on some leftist support groups and ultras around the world. Spotlights, just even if it's not a full support group, whatever, when you see leftist flags and tifos and LGBTQ plus and trans flags and tifos, when I spot stuff like that, I'd like to highlight that. Um, Critique how inclusive teams actually are for their fans as well as their players. Look at the MLS, look at the NWSL, look at the USL, look at teams around the world that are either doing an actual good job of being inclusive or that are failing or just paying lip service to that. So I want to look at that. And then a history of anti-fascism in football. Football is a sport that is so of the people because you can play it practically anywhere with anything that you can kick. So it's very much of the people, and that has led to normal, everyday people uh, associating their love of football with their politics, with the struggles that they're going through. So there is a definite history of anti-fascism in football, as well as the opposite, and especially things around World War II and the events leading up to that, and certainly ever since and before World War II, because fascism was on the rise for all of the 20th century. So football has had its role in that for sure. I want to spotlight some outspoken players that have really spoken out for leftist causes and against fascism, against tyranny, against authoritarianism, against genocide, that have been speaking out in favor of LGBTQ plus and trans rights, or maybe that they are themselves LGBT. Yeah, so look at players that have done those kind of things. What else? I'm going to rail against FIFA. I'm going to rail against Argentina's performance of late, not just on the pitch, but away from it. There's certainly a lot to talk about there. I know a lot of people have been talking about it, but I'm going to give my 2 cents as well. I definitely want to look at the women's game. There's a lot happening there, a lot to look at, a lot to appreciate, and some shortcomings too. Um, and then some different news stories that might be coming out. Recently, a rugby team in Baltimore came out in favor of having trans players on their team. It's a women's rugby team. There's news stories like that, and we can look at what's going on with that, how they're dealing with the political juggernaut that's trying to rail against them, and how football can do the same to include trans players at all levels. It's going to be a fight, and it's a fight that needs to happen. I want to look at money in the game of football and the part that it's played and the discrepancies that exist between the fans and the owners. When the owners are horrible people doing horrible things with all their billions of dollars and trying to use that to build up a football club that is not in accordance with the community, with what the fans want. That's a huge topic, but I definitely want to tackle that. So those are some of my ideas. Um, Other things will come to me as we go, but pretty much each of those being its own video. They're going to be very low effort. Like I said, not a lot of scripting, if any. Maybe just some highlights of what I want to talk about and then just kind of go off on them. Not a lot in terms of editing and video and all that. It's going to be very basic for when I'm very short of energy. I'll be moving soon. I'll be starting a PhD program in a few weeks. So right now I'm preparing for all that. There's a lot going on. And then once it actually starts, that's going to be a lot going on. So yeah, this is just a place where I can just kind of hit record, talk, rant, throw some pictures on for people to look at, and that's about it. But we'll see where it goes. All right, that's all for me. So have a great day. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.